Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Disgustingly Resilient podcast, and in today's episode I'm going to hopefully teach you how to play Death Guard a bit more like a World Eater. We're going to look at how to play Death Guard in an aggressive manner, and yeah, we'll go from there. So if you are interested in being aggressive and putting pressure on your opponent and that's the lifestyle for you, this is a video that's all guided to you. This was inspired by a Reddit post I had seen online where basically someone new to the faction wanted to get into the faction and was told that they should think about the playstyle, and they were like, oh, I want to play something aggressive, and then everyone told them, no, this isn't the army for you, go play orcs, go play world eaters, despite the person saying Death Guard's the favourite lore and aesthetic. So that person has been unfortunately misled a little bit, because you definitely can play Death Guard aggressive, so we'll get into that. But for now, if you enjoy the content of this channel, quick reminders, please leave a like and a subscribe, and even engage in the comments. Those who don't actually know, there was a bit of a change to YouTube recently where it's kind of screwed over a lot of people when it comes to view counts, and it's a long topic. I'm not going to get into it here, but at the moment, when I say likes and subscribe do not really help, right now they really do. So just bear that in mind. And if you want to become a member of our community and get access to our Discord, etc., consider hitting the join button and becoming a Plague Marine for $2.99 a month. It's less than a coffee. Once you're in, you'll never get kicked out. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get straight into it. So first up, we have a bit of a conundrum, which is people say that you can't do that. Death Guard are too slow, but you're all about the attrition playstyle. You can't play aggressive Death Guard. That's madness. There's no such thing. It's not a valid playstyle. You can't do that at all. Just go play something else. Like I said, this is all stuff that was online that kind of inspired me to make this video. Aggression, however, is... Now, don't get me wrong, there are armies that do aggression different, and obviously the way we will do aggression is quite different to how World Eaters will do aggression. The reason for this is because our stats are not the same. We are not as fast as World Eaters, but we are much more durable than World Eaters, so our version of an aggressive build is actually quite different to a World Eaters. Now, it does not mean it's not aggressive, it does not mean it's not an active, putting the pressure on the enemy kind of playstyle. It just means that you go about it in a little bit of a different way. Aggression, at the core of it, is a mindset, not an army identity. You can play aggressive anything. You can play aggressive Custodes, you can play aggressive Knights, aggressive Eldar, aggressive Orcs. You can play the opposite. You can play passive of all them armies. In fact, one of the best ways to play World Eaters is passive aggressively. Red Path has an amazing video on playing passive aggressive World Eaters. If you're interested in that, check that out. It's a really good video. But again, it's a mindset, not an army defining trait, although some armies naturally lean better into it. Our army, Death Guard, is so versatile that we can do an aggressive build. We just have to do it our way, which is what we're going to get into. So, what is aggro? He says with half of the shaded filter across the screen. I am a professional. So, aggression at its core is applying pressure to your opponent. Putting your opponent under pressure from the get-go, basically making sure that they're on the back foot. You're taking the aggressive stance in the game, and you're making the engagements happen. This means that as a person that's playing aggressive, you're trying to control and dictate the game's tempo. And when we say tempo, we mean like the flow of the game. Where's the fights happening? Where's the action at? You're forcing your opponent to react because your aggression is making them react. If someone doesn't react to being put under aggression, they're just going to get ran over. So they have to come out and fight. So it allows you to say, hi, we're not playing your game of trading little bits at a time. I'm coming at you and you best have an answer for it, because if you don't, I'm going to roll you over. Now, in terms of aggression, it often comes down to, for Death Guard anyway, a knockout blow or a go turn. Aggressive Death Guard is all about this big slam push into our opponents where we hit them as hard as possible, and then we use the fact that we've got all our durability built into our data sheets to absorb the hit back. It'll hurt, don't get me wrong, but the idea is we hit them, we hurt them harder, we take the hit back, and then we go for the next turn. Is kind of like the coup de grace. It's the finishing move. The next turn should really seal the deal. Now, the idea of this entire thing is to keep our opponent on the back foot. We want to keep their score down. We don't want to let them do actions. We don't want to let them hold primary. We're trying to keep our opponent trying to stabilize, which is quite a good term actually. It's quite used in like Magic when you're, a red player's like burning you and your life total's getting lower and lower and lower, and you're like, oh god. You're trying to not win the game at that point. You're trying to stay alive and stay in the game, and that's what we're trying to put our opponent under. Because if they're focused on just not losing the game, that means they're not focused on winning the game, which means sometimes we have to be afraid. We have to not be afraid to lose units, because as I just said then, it doesn't matter if we're tabled at the end of it. If our opponent's been kept off objectives all game and been denied access to actions all game, chances are, even though you might be tabled and you got not much left, if I'm 40 points up at that point, they're not getting back into the game. And this is even more important now that challenger cards are gone from the game, because that easy catch-up mechanic has been once again removed. So now we're back in the game where we can put opponents under immense pressure, keep that score low, and they don't get a 3 get out of jail card from challenger cards. But as we said, to be aggressive means to be putting yourself in danger. You have to put units forward. You have to be aggressive. Not stupid, but aggressive. And that means you're going to lose units. And for someone, especially like me, I am naturally a defensive player. I'm not an aggressive player, but I've been trying to learn it. And at first, it feels so weird. Sometimes you're going to put units out there that, yeah, they'll go kill someone, but then you know they're just going to die. But you accept that risk and you accept the fact that that's going to happen. But you understand that that unit dying is forcing response from your opponent, because if they don't deal with it, it's just going to kill someone else. So in a sense, yes, I'm losing a unit, but it's also going to help me dictate what my opponent does, which will control the game and hopefully lead me to a win. But that guy is too slow. That is literally the most thing I hear all the time. Like, average Necron Andy over here. Not Andy, by the way. Not actual Andy. the Necron player here is actually called Andy. Love you, Andy. This is not a quote from you. Just average Andy. The thing I hear the most is, but Death Guard is too slow. You can't play aggressive. You move 4 inches. Which is absolute nonsense. I just want to clarify that right now. Speed helps in heavy pressure from turn 1. But it doesn't mean you can't be aggressive just because you aren't moving, 16 inches a turn. Yeah, sure, World Eaters and Emperor's Children can get in your opponent's turn 1 if you want. But even if you ask the average World Eater player, full send in turn 1 is actually not a good thing. Like, half the time, it ends up losing your game because you're over-aggressive. So, actually, the speed's not the biggest issue. It's the mindset of how to apply it. So, how does Death Guard aggro work? As I said then, aggression does not mean turn 1 unga bunga. Go ask the World Eater players. It's not about just going, I deploy on the line, I got first turn, I run at you, and I killed some stuff, and that was it, and I won the game. Like, that works at a very basic level of the game when someone doesn't know anything about the game, and they just let you turn 1, charge them, and that's it. GG's a good one. It's not how it actually works in reality. The second you start coming across competent players, 1, if you go second, you're going to die because you deployed stupid. And 2, there's things called screens and stuff like that you got to learn to get around. So really what it's all about is it's learning to stage and set up for that big go turn when you have your aggressive push. So why does Death Guard aggro work compared to other factions? Well, really, when you play Death Guard aggressively, you're not looking to just go and absolutely murder blend anything and be in your opponent's deployment turn 1 like an Emperor's Children player. Instead, we're looking to overwhelm our enemy in a tide of rotten pestilence. What this means is we're going to literally have our turn where we smash into them and everything is out there. Now, what this does is it maximizes the best of our defensive stat lines. A lot of our units are higher toughness than average. They're not unkillable, but it does mean the dice are often need quite a bit more shots to kill than a normal unit. Now, if you send out 1 unit at a time, it's quite easy to focus fire and get that down. Easy peasy. But when everything comes out at once, then that actually fact that it's taking more dice to kill a unit means that you're not going to kill the other units or even damage them in some instances, which means some units are just going to get through scot-free. So having that overwhelming pressure, it's basically the idea of putting so much chunk out there, so much toughness, that your opponent can, yeah, of course, will kill some, but they can't kill the rest. And then the rest of it then crashes into them, and it's that overwhelming pressure because, again, every time you're dealing damage to your opponent, removing their assets, they have less damage to swing back into you, which means the clapback gets even less every time, and your higher toughness stats are already requiring more dice out of your opponent, and you're taking dice away from them every time you kill units. So it's just an escalating problem where if they don't reach that damage check, you can just brawl over them with that defensive stat line. Now also it means we're going to make extensive use of reserves and transports. Now the cool thing is you don't actually have to do this. There are different builds for Death Guard aggression. Some can be Terminator heavy, some could be, like, again, as you'll see later, I have actually a very Terminator heavy build in Death Lord's Chosen, but a lot of people will use Rhinos, even Land Raiders. Go check out Zito's channel, he runs Land Raider Champions of Contagion hyper aggression all the time and consistently gets 4 and 1s at events. So he's a really good player, and he might just use things like Land Raiders and make them work, full of Plague Marines and Death Shroud and all this cool stuff. So extensive use of reserves and transports helps offset that movement issue, and then they naturally, because they carry your troops around, they almost become like staging points themselves where they can drive out, drop off some troops, or if it's a Land Raider, drive up, drop out, go charge. It's a lot of pressure, and they really help alleviate that speed. Now Death Guard aggro also works because in that brawling range, which is like within 12 inches, so like 12 to 18ish inches, then we get our opponent in that range, Death Guard damage output can be absolutely insane. We have fantastic stratagems to deal damage and rerolls all out the wazoo. -1 save contagion with -1 toughness. Absolutely brutal. Like, if you've not been hit by Death Guard up close, you don't know what's coming for you. Like, Death Shroud, Lord of Contagion, crit 5s in Champions kills pretty much anything you put it into, or at least chunks the hell out of it. So that means our pressure builds are extremely scary because even the smallest units can end up killing quite a lot of stuff, and especially the multi-phase units like Plague Marines who can shoot one unit to death, charge and kill another. It's really crazy when the aggression starts coming, and again, they can't deal with all of it, so some units are going to connect. And as I said before, this helps maximize our defensive stat line, so I'll get back into that. And it also, this aggressive pressure playstyle gives us natural synergy with our army rules. We naturally want to be close to our opponent. We want to have them in contagion range, whether that's to give them -1 to hit, -1 save, and then unlock all your abilities. 6-inch deep strike from Death Shroud, rerolls to wound on Plague Marines, all these kind of good things. But they all want us to be close to our opponent. So playing aggressive, getting into our opponent's lines, getting them in contagion range is going to allow us to apply damage and also even survive in some instances because of -1 to hit, etc. much more efficiently. So remember, Death Guard aggro is a mindset. Be aggressive. It's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's totally fine, and it's going to require some trial and error. Sometimes full sending it can seem super risky. Like, I've had games where I thought I've lost the game. I'd look at the board and I'm like, I don't get back into this, so fuck it, we full send. And I full send my entire army out, and then the next minute I've ended up winning the game turn 5 because they couldn't kill enough of it in a turn, and then what was left dealt so much damage to my opponent's army, it actually got me back into the game, and they started to run away with it. But like I said, trial and error is required. Aggression is a learnt thing. You're going to have a turn where maybe you go too aggressive or too early, and then boop, bang, you messed it up, you got killed. Like, the nature of the beast with aggression is sometimes it works, sometimes it don't, but as you get better at it, the idea is that you can use the knowledge that you've gained and little tips and tricks to maximize how you get aggressive and identify where to be aggressive to get better results every time. Now, one thing we say is when we send it, we full send it. Again, when you're going to have your aggressive turn, when you're going to have your go turn, as we say, do not half-ass it. Half-ass full sends lose games, because again, you are taking away the strength of the Death Guard. You're taking away the fact that our toughness is higher, we need more dice to kill units, so when it all comes out at once, you can't possibly deal with anything. And this even extends to the non-killer units. Like, when you send it, I want you to stand your Poxwalkers and objectives. I want the killy stuff to not be on objectives, because again, I want to make my opponent decide, do you kill the stuff that's on the objective and deny me points, or do you kill the stuff that's going to kill you? Pick your poison. I'm either scoring primary or I'm killing you. Pick one. So this is the point where it's like, it's really important. Again, if you think of a rhino that's got plague marines in it, maybe the rhino doesn't have a good charge into something. Maybe the guys can't have a good target. But if we're going to full send it, if we're going to bring in our Death Shroud and maybe send in some other stuff like Mortarium, whatever, drive that rhino up, because that rhino is a threat. It exists. It says, hey, if you don't pop this rhino, these plague marines next turn are going to drive another 12 inches forward, jump out and shoot something to death that's behind that wall over there. And you're just trying to force as many choices from your opponent. The more decisions you can put onto your opponent, the more chances they have to make a mistake. And you're trying to make them make the wrong decisions, make the wrong choices. Maybe they overestimate the damage. Maybe they get a bad roll here that they weren't expecting. And now suddenly that pressure is really ramping up onto your opponent. So how do we do aggression in Death Guard? Unit selection is massive. There are certain units that don't necessarily work super well in aggressive builds. Plagueburst Crawlers, for example, they're super expensive. They have indirect. They're more looking for a long, drawn-out game to use their indirect to get attritional value over time and basically run over your opponent by value trading. So they're not really going to make much good use in an aggressive Death Guard build because they're expensive now. They can do flamer work, that's fine, but again, they just tend to be too expensive and too cumbersome to get around the board. So we think more like this. Transports, fantastic. Again, gives speed to our slow infantry, gets our plague marines into the fight. Even the Land Raider can be good. I'm not saying it's a top competitive choice, but it can definitely pull its weight when used correctly. I've seen it used correctly. It's very good when it's used correctly. So being able to have these transports that can carry our guys to the fight, get into the fight, put pressure on our opponent, and become staging points, which we'll cover in a second. Excellent. Terminators, Blight Lord bricks. I've literally ran 10 Blight Lords with a Lord of Virulence with the +1 move, reroll advances in Death Lord's Chosen, and then give it assault every single turn for a CP. That thing was running at my opponent, gunning him down, slamming into melee then on the next turn. Super, super powerful. Loved it. Terminator's 6-inch deep strike on Death Shroud. Again, what a better way to put your opponent under pressure. The imminent threat of you sending some spawn forward, which we'll get into in a second, which spread contagion, and now suddenly, 2 squads of Death Shroud have appeared. Meanwhile, that Rhino's drove up that flank. Those Blight Lords are pushing over there. Oh my god, what do I deal with? Do I deal with the Death Shroud? Do I deal with the Rhino that's full of Plague Marines that are going to get out next turn? Or do I try and deal with this Blight Lord brick? And oh god, there's a Mortarion. There's all these cool things that put your opponent under pressure. And Terminators also have that 4-up invulnerable, and that 4-up invulnerable, we talk about making our opponent make bad decisions. The 4-up invulnerable can sometimes force bad decisions, not because it's a bad decision to shoot them, but sometimes we do what's called scamming our opponents. We scam them. So someone says, hey, take 6 4-up invulnerables. So they're in their head, they're like, cool, on average he makes 3 and it's 4 damage each and I kill all the Terminators, brilliant. And then suddenly you make 5. And now he's like, ha, I thought they'd all be dead and now 1 is dead instead. I have been scammed. And this means now that that unit has gotten away with something they shouldn't have because that invuln existed. And if they haven't set up a redundancy plan for that, that unit's going to kill something next turn. So maybe then instead they overcommit to killing it, but then they shoot the first one and it dies. And then it's like, okay, the others have nothing to shoot. The 4-up invulnerable just makes awkward decisions for your opponent because a 4-up is so spiky, so spiky. So love anything with a 4-up invulnerable as well. Chaos Spawn, amazing for aggressive builds. They're super fast, they get to early staging points, and then they can launch from those points to spread contagion into our opponent's lines. This lets you set up your Death Shroud Terminators coming in. It also lets you set up any shooting. So, you want to get AP5 Blight Haulers, you just run the spawn up next to that tank you want to shoot. Now you got the AP5 because of the -1 save contagion. All sorts of good things come from spreading contagion. It's a super important rule, so Chaos Spawn are fantastic in aggressive builds. Demon Engines, drones and haulers, they're super cheap. They've got that invuln so they can scam people. They are annoying to kill for their points. It's 100 points for a bloat drone. We're talking the normal version and the haulers here. Like, HBL drones are decent, but they're more of a backline shooting thing rather than an aggressive piece. But again, 3 flesh mowers, 3 spitters, like, that's got to be dealt with, and it's 300 points. It's literally tiny. It's a small amount of your list to make 3 really annoying demon engines that have to be dealt with. And again, they can't just be dealt with anything because they're T9, 10 wounds, 3-up save, and a 5 invulnerable. And haulers are the exact same. So these fast demon engines that can push up and support your push, really, really good. And you can even look at allies, look at carnivores. They're super fast, they've got good OC, they hit like an absolute freight train. And then you've got things like stalkers as well, which can add scout to your list with scouting war dogs. Again, it's all this coming in at your opponent at once. Like, do they want to deal with the Death Shroud that have just appeared 6 inches away from them and killed something? They've charged and killed something. Or do you want to deal with the carnivore that's about to come in? Because, yeah, the carnivore might be easier to kill. It's only got a 5-up invulnerable. So you got less chance of getting scammed. But at the same time, if you're going to shoot that, you're going to ignore the Death Shroud who are already in your lines. Like, again, it's all these bad decisions we're trying to make our opponent make. The best way to think of it is, does it either do the following? Does the unit apply pressure to your opponent? This is stuff like the demon engines going in early and, you know, causing chaos with the little 100-point bodies that they are. Or does it force your opponent to do something about it? Even infiltrating poxwalkers. If your opponent knows you're trying to use them to set up contagion for deep strikes, your opponent's kind of got to engage them, because if they don't, you're just going to move and advance out next turn, spread contagion, then drop on in. Same with spawn. And even pulling your opponent forward can sometimes make your aggression easier, because if they're coming to you, well, now you've got less distance to travel. You just go and kill those units, put all the pressure on the mid board, and then push into your opponent's lines. Do they set up the go turn or enable units? This is things like the Rhinos, the Land Raiders, the Chaos Spawn. They help set you up and they help enable the go turn to happen. Really, really, really important. And then, of course, how hard does it hit and how tough can it be? The potential to spike 4-ups is amazing value in pressure lists, but also the ability for something to be so threatening. Like, again, I can't stress it, 10 Plague Marines with crit sustained lethal 5s, with full rerolls to hit and wound for 1 command point in Virulent Vectorum, cannot be ignored, because that thing, if it gets bead on a couple units, can shoot 3 units to death pretty easily, especially if they're MSU, and then potentially charge another. That hits so damn hard, and if that has to be respected. And again, this could put your opponent in a scenario where that Rhinos just drove forward, it's ready to deploy next turn, but you've got 2 squads of Death Shroud in your lines. Pick your poison, mate. It ain't gonna end well for you. Now, on the board here, I've got a couple of things about staging points on my screen, sorry. So a staging point, just to explain it, is an area of the board in which you basically set up units ready for the go turn. So if you look on the screen here, this is a GW layout that we all love and are used to, and apart from the UK, we don't play it. Now, the markers here, the symbols, are dictating what I would consider a staging point, and the arrows show you the point of attack you get from there. So imagine a Rhino on every single one of these markers, full of Plague Marines. You can disembark 3 over the wall and then move 5. Look at the points of attack you get. So if someone's behind this wall, you can attack them. If there's an objective down here, this one can attack into both the center and into your opponent's objective up here. Top left one's definitely the weakest, it's only got the 1 point of attack, which then when you think about staging points, you probably want to actually think about what the better ones are, because yes, this one at the top does stage here, and that's not too bad, but can that also be achieved from this center point? Because if it can, then you have this point that can not only threaten the top, but can also threaten the center. Therefore, it's a bit more valuable. But again, if you can get both, that's also brilliant. So when you look at a map and a terrain, no matter what you're on, look at it and just think, where are the points where if I stand in here for a turn, can I have a big impact next turn? Because if I put Rhinos or Blightlord Terminators in any of these points, they can all, on that push turn, like imagine I've got 10 Blightlords in this middle building here. I've got a Rhino full of dudes down here, and I've got a Chaos Spawn up here in this top left. Now, what we can do is the Chaos Spawn move out, put Contagion on this rune at the top. I can drop some Death Shroud there. The Blightlords can move and advance into the middle and potentially shoot up and down. And then if I go down here, the Rhino with the Plague Marines can either go on to attack my opponent's natural objective or push up and attack to whatever units of my opponents are behind this wall here. Staging points are incredibly important because before you have that big go turn, this is what you're trying to look to set up. Now let's have a look at another example. On here, there's even more setup potential. So again, you can see all the angles of attack on here. And the interesting one here is this one right here in the center, behind our opponent's wall, is actually a staging point. Because if you're playing quarters deployment and you get first turn and manage to put some spawn behind this wall, what realistically gets to engage them that isn't a melee unit? And again, if it's a melee unit, you can force them to charge onto this side of the wall and then shoot them for free. And if you're here, your opponent's firing lanes, they're not going to be able to shoot them from this angle. They'd have to come all the way out here to get an angle. So even though it's not in a ruin, because most people think staging points are just things that are in a L-shaped ruin behind a wall, if you actually look on this map, it's actually not the case. That's a really good staging point for some spawn to then run in. And look, if they get a move in here and advance, they can get contagion all the way into our opponent's deployment zone. That means Death Shroud appearing, making the fight happen over here, keeping our opponent locked in the deployment zone, which means they're not going to be scoring primary because they're going to be just trying to stay alive. So another good point here is this top one. It's hard to get here to stage naturally because it's quite open. However, quite often, your opponent will have a unit in this building here and not push anything out to here because they think it's useless. Like, if I go here, I'm just going to get shot down here. Of course, I don't want to do that. So if they ever leave this open for you, honestly, if you've got a Rhino or something in reserves, or even just a Demon Engine, rapid ingressing behind this wall, and then being able to move on through, see all this, again, it spreads contagion, so now you can bring in some Death Shroud over here, and go for a 6-inch charge. It's not an obvious one, but you can use things like rapid ingress into a staging point to then launch an attack next turn. So don't be afraid to rapid ingress like something that isn't like a Terminator. Like, again, rapid ingressing a bloat drone up here, who can then next turn fly 10 over here, potentially flame something, or even advance up to 16 to set up a Death Shroud drop to make a go turn. Because imagine, you push a bloat drone up here, drop in some Death Shroud. At the same time, you drive a Rhino onto the center point here, and then this spawn that was behind this wall moves through, spreads more contagion, you drop another unit of Death Shroud in here, and then some Demon Engines that were hiding behind here move through and start firing up like this. That is so many problems presented to your opponent at a single time. Their focus isn't going to be on attacking your primary up here or trying to crack this Rhino. It's going to be on these 2 Death Shroud squads and this bloat drone here and this other bloat drone down here and the spawn that are in there and tagging stuff. And if they, if they did try to deal with the Death Shroud and maybe they kill a unit, maybe they don't, like, then this Rhino drives on through up to here into your opponent's deployment zone, drops out the Marines, they then shoot 3 units to death or something stupid. Like, it can get out of hand real quick. And that's the examples I wanted to use on these GW layouts to show you examples of staging points where things can go. I mean, that could be a Mortarion moving through to the middle point, so a Mortarion is guaranteed going to hold this primary, and the next turn, after the, while they're busy trying to kill Terminators and stuff, Morty's then going to float into the deployment zone. Nobody wants a Mortarion in the deployment zone. Ugh, imagine. So yeah, these are just some examples of staging points that I think can be good to understand and getting aggressive into our opponent from there. So the easiest way to think about it is this. Step 1, stage. Whether that's forcing them out to interact with you or just reaching your launch points and setting up your contagion. That is what the stage 1 is. So turn 1, get into your staging phase. Force reaction from your opponent, kill those units if you want to, whatever you've got to do. If they don't interact with you, then you're going to stage for absolutely 3, and that is also totally fine. That is more than happy with that. Then, if they don't interact with you, use your launch points to then trigger into the second phase, which is your send phase. This is the go turn. Send it. Send out those things. Spread contagion. Now, sometimes you might want to wait a turn, and that's totally fine. Sometimes you want that contagion range to expand. Virulent Vectorum is really good for being able to do this on turn 2 reliably, because you can always pay the CP to add 3 inches to your army's contagion. So turn 2 becomes turn 3 for contagion. So it makes the second turn send and Virulent Vectorum very effective. But again, if you've got the transports in the right places on turn 1 and turn 2 feels like the turn it's going to happen, go for it. Again, the quicker you get the aggression onto your opponent in that sense, the more chance you're going to have to drop the score. So remember, full send it. Deal that damage and apply the pressure. You're not looking for perfect engagements all the time. Obviously, try and get good ones, but you can take slightly less good engagements if it's going to make sure you do either the following. You're looking to do one of the two. Damage your opponent's key units or damage the scoreboard. If you can do either of those things, then you're doing it right. And then remember, you score while all this is going on, but the last step is the scoring point. You've dropped the points because the sending it has dropped the points. You force them to fight. Once this is happening, you use the rest of your units, your Poxwalkers, your empty Rhino now. They're the ones that are going to do your actions. They're the ones that are going to secure the point. while your opponent's trying to fight for their life, trying to hang in, trying to not get themselves killed, the rest of your army is scoring the points, whilst theirs are simultaneously kept low. Right, so we're just going to quickly go through this now. This was my Deathlord's Chosen experience. I took Deathlord's Chosen to an event, ended up going 4 wins, 1 draw. Now, this is the old points, but again, we're not looking at points. Points isn't what matters. The list of matter. It's the fundamentals of it. Now, this is Deathlord's Chosen, because I wanted to get aggressive. I wanted to use a load of Terminators. I wanted to have those 4 up invulnerables to scam my opponent. So I made this list, which was very, very aggressive. I've got a Lord of Virulence with the reroll advances plus 1 move. We've got 2 Lord of Contagions, one which has the uppy downy, and Typhus. Then we've got 2 squads of Poxwalkers, 1 big brick of Blight Lords, 3 squads of 3 Death Shroud Terminators, 2 squads of Chaos Spawn, 3 HBL drones, and 2 Methetic Blight Haulers. I took this list to the event, and again, I'm going to pass you over the table aid, and he's going to show you an example of a setup of like a deployment and how it was kind of like play and sort of stage for that aggression. But the rough idea of it is the Blightlord brick would stay on the board, it would stage in that turn 1 with your nice consistent advance, alongside the Spawn who would also do it. The Haulers would sort of also pull up. The HBL bloat drones would take long angles as well. And then I would have 1 squad of Death Shroud with the uppy downy on the board, just in case I really wanted to turn 1 aggressive, because if my opponent went first, I can turn 1 uppy downy with that. But it didn't really end up doing that every single turn, because again, only do it when it's right. Don't send it in first turn just because you can. Just because I could uppy downy turn 1 doesn't mean I should. There's plenty of games where I still went second and I did not uppy downy turn 1. I staged and I waited for the go turn. And then on the go turn, the Spawn ran out, got as much stuff in Contagion as possible. The Blight Lords moved in advance, and I paid a CP to give them assault weapons so that they could spread Contagion and shoot a unit to death. And then I uppy downed the previous Death Shroud, and I dropped all 3 squads in 6 inches away, who then all made a charge. So my opponent literally went from dealing with 0 problems to dealing with my entire army, all which rock 4 up invulnerables and toughness 7 in the same damn turn. And when I did that, I made sure I also moved up my Blight Haulers, and I got my HBL bloat drones to take much more aggressive firing lines, because again, if their attention is focused on killing my bloat drones, they're ignoring the Terminators that are literally 4 inches away from them in their lines. So they're not going to shoot the bloat drones realistically, which means my bloat drones then next turn, after I got hit back a bit, I still had quite a bit going because 4 up invulnerables are 4 up invulnerable. The bloat drones then started combining with a Lord of Virulence, shooting entire units to death there, while the rest of the Death Shroud then charged and killed more stuff, and the Blight Lords were still gunning away. It was incredibly fun to play, I'm not going to lie. It was incredibly fun. So I'm going to pass you over to Table Aiden, who's going to take you through a quick example. It's not going to be quick, I'm not going to lie. This video is going to be a long one. Again, apologies. But hey, long form content, long form content. So yeah, pass you over to Table Aiden, and I'll see you back very, very quickly. Hey guys, I just wanted to record this quickly and throw it into the video. This is my old Deathlord's Chosen list that I was talking about previously. I have taken a squad of Death Shroud and Contagion out to sort of get used to the points change, but it's more about the theory here rather than the actual list. So again, talk about lessons we've just covered. We're looking to make that, you know, that stage, then like sort of have you go to and then sort of score later on. So in this instance, I'm just quickly showing my deployment what would be. So this is going to be the sweeping engagement, Crucible of Battle, sorry. So it's the diagonal like that. As you can see, I've actually deployed very, very aggressively. Now, there are a couple of things I want to point out about the deployment. So this here unit of Death Shroud is actually the uppy downy. So that is where they're deployed on the board. Now, the really reason for this is that if I go first, I can just obviously sneak into this nice little corner here, and then turn 2, I have a really nice sort of point to come out and attack this objective naturally. Regardless of what happens, they have a natural little attacking position there. If I go second, they can also uppy downy turn 1, which is going to be really good, because if my opponent puts something extremely scary in here, they're trying to stage themselves, they put something like a big squad of Sanguinary Guard. I have these Spawn here that can instead, they scout if I go second into this corner here, and then the next turn, and then in my turn 2, when I uppy my guys, these guys can then, on turn 1 when I uppy, these guys can then run out onto this point here, spread Contagion into this point, and then I could do a turn 1 drop a Death Shroud in like here, and go for a charge to basically kill that off. Or if it's really important, obviously that's not ideal. Like, I'd obviously like to keep my uppy downy for the proper go turn, but again, if it's really going to matter to the game, like, that is an option. My Spawn are Deployed always aggressively, because the scout move means that if I go first, I can basically scout up to here, the 6-inch scout, and then get the move, and then we can just go and hide behind this wall. Now, the reason I like this so much in UKTC is there is jack all to shoot these guys. Like, that angle is completely cut off down there. You have to come and melee them, and that means if you've got to melee them, you're going to be on this side of the wall, which then you can get countercharged by said Death Shroud who are hiding out in here. And one thing that's very important when I do this is because, again, I'm always trying to think, what would my opponent do? So if I do this, my opponent's natural reaction is to either come and melee them, so we've got an answer for that with these guys here. And if my opponent's answer is to shoot them, well, to shoot them, they're going to have to come down this angle here, which means they'll need to deploy somewhere out here in the open and then drive down the side. So I've actually countered that with 2 drops of fetid bloat drones here, who can then obviously, if something starts to push down or deploy on this edge here and I actually get first turn, these guys obviously just hop out and have some nice, really clean firing lanes all the way down the side of the board there. So it really disincentivizes someone interacting with these spawn, because if they come to melee the spawn, I have counter charges. If they come to try and shoot the spawn, I have a response. But the problem, what I want to happen is, I want them to just out OC the spawn. So I want them to just send in something and stand on this point here. That is the correct answer to stop me scoring primary. But what that does is that preserves my spawn, which is going to be really important for this turn 2 that we talk about, this all-in turn, because it means that the next turn, these guys can potentially, you know, if they move 8, let's say they've only toe tipped it and I can maybe get an angle here, I can go like this way, potentially advance up to 6, potentially 14-inch move. Now I've got spawn all the way potentially here, spreading contagion to everything that's in here, which is extremely powerful. And if they don't do that, if they, worst case now, they just let me have it for some stupid reason, or maybe they have a single model that's got good OC, I can maybe come down the side here, put contagion to the back line. So that's really good. So that's a nice aggressive use of staging on your turn 1 to set up that big go turn. Now, identically down here, we've got the same thing. These spawn here, if we go second, can nicely scout just there. If we get first, we can come and take the position up here. We can even potentially use our poxwalkers to go and do like a move block or something, just to stop our opponent getting to primaries easy. But again, they're happy to sort of sit in there as well. So they can, you know, just make a wall like that with the poxwalkers, and these guys can take the place inside. Now, the one thing that's important here is I want to make sure my opponent always has a bad trades into spawn. So what I'm looking at is, again, if I'm going first, for example, and those spawn are going to that location there, my opponent's answers for that are, again, once again, to charge them. But again, if they charge them, they're going to end up on this side of the wall here. I want to make sure that if my spawn are going to die, they can't get back over this wall. Bear in mind, they can consolidate 3 inches. So as long as that 3 inches stops their full base, because it only gets to there if I'm here. So if I'm in there, just want to stop them getting on this side of the wall. Because if that's the case, if they come and kill spawn, which again needs an actual decent unit to kill spawn, it means I get a 3 kill because these Blight Lords just walk to here, quite literally, and just blast it all away. So we get a 3 kill there. But if they don't, and we go second, again, we can come to the middle here, a nice little staging point, and then, again, if we went second, we can uppy down this squad here, then maybe we could even go, if they've been really bold, and they put, like, you know, one of their scary staging units in here, potentially, then we go for a turn 1, drop in on that, potentially, if we need to. Again, only do that if it's going to get you a really big kill. The main important thing is to set up staging points so that we can go here, and then, you know, if turn 1 they come and kill these poxwalkers, then you can go and counter-take it with a spawn. And again, this is also a really good position to be in to go and spread contagion on further turns. Now, when we look at the actual Terminator Blightlord brick itself, these guys are looking to just get straight into the center. There's a reason for this. One, it's a very natural staging point in here, gets me straight to the middle objective, which is great. But the good thing about Blightlords is their main output is the shooting. So if I actually get to this point of the objective out here, I have angles to shoot up to clear this objective, and I have angles to shoot down to damage stuff that's on this objective here, as well as obviously holding the middle. So let's assume that their guys are going to move in there. Now, one other thing I do is to make sure that the 2 shooting angles that are into my deployment are here and like here. Now, the Lord of Virulence is actually in a spot where he can easily move in advance, because remember, these guys are always assault when I want them to be, but they also get to reroll advances in a +1 move. This Lord of Virulence is easily able to pivot to this side here to see down and mark a target, and this side here to mark a target. So what I'll often do sometimes is leave out a bait unit like this little Blight Hauler here. So he's just pipping behind this building to get cover. And the reason I do it with Blight Hauler and not a Bloat Drone is because Blight Haulers also have access to smoke if I want to. So if my opponent has limited shooting and they want to get into this fight here against this Bloat Drone, this Pathetic Blight Hauler, they can maybe kill him. But then as long as it's going to be an uptrade for me, the Lord of Ruins can then move here. The rest of the Blight Lords move into the actual terrain. His little gun sticks out. I mark the target. This thing flies down here. This thing flies down here. And then we go bang bang and shoot back at it. So we get 2 Blight Drones with 4 rerolls there. You can obviously also stick out some Reaper auto cannons if you want to from your actual Blight Lord squad. And the same is true for the other side. So again, we can move this way, pivot to have our gun stick out, get line of sight from the gun, mark anything there. And this side we've got a Pathetic Blight Hauler and a Pathetic Bloat Drone that can come out and shoot and say hello, as well as, again, these Blight Lords can come out to the side and put some Reaper auto cannons down. But again, that's only more of a deterrent to my opponent. You just be like, hey, just be aware if you come to these angles and shoot me, I can get, you know, these Bloat Drones on you, I can get this Hauler here on you, I can get these guns on you here. So it's just a way to stop your opponent doing exactly what they want. Now, let me just get all the guys back in position to where they were very quickly. So you guys come back here, because we're going to have a Phil first turn movement sort of like setup. So yeah, also don't be too afraid to always deploy everything 100% hidden. I will happily bait this little Blight Hauler here, because again, he's got the invuln, he can also get -1 to hit, and there's a good chance, and I've made sure he's got cover, so I'll give him the best odds he can to survive. And if he's only 100 points and my opponent sticks out like a Gladiator Lancer to shoot him, again, obviously understand your ranges. If they can shoot him from all the way back here, probably not worth it. But if they've got like a Vindicator or something, maybe, or something a bit shorter range, you have to come out here. If they kill a 100-point vehicle, if you can respond to that and guarantee kill one of theirs, and that can be worth it sometimes, especially if you outgun them. So if that's like one of their like 2 Forge Fiends, for example, and World Eaters, like if you kill one of them there for the sake of 1 Blight Hauler, who again could potentially live, that's going to be quite worth it. So again, always bear in mind these things. So the Haulers themselves are just looking to obviously come up on stage. The Blight launch drones are kind of like your backfield. They're not the ones wanting to be aggressive, but we're going to use the aggression that we're going to put down on the go turn to allow these guys better angles on the board, as you'll see. So I'm going to say we've got first turn here. So I'm going to go with scout these guys up here, and then I'm going to move them behind this building here. Same down here. I'm going to actually go into here and just move them to here, because again, I'm fine with this angle, because the only way for my opponent to react to it is to come out through here, or to come and actually come full down and melee me. And if someone wants to come out into here, that's going to be fine by me, because I'm about to do this and put all these Blight Lords into this building. So if they want to come out here and shoot these 2 spawn with these guys here, they want to come out into this point here, so maybe like a Vindicator or something sticking its ass out here to shoot down, I'm more than happy to just come and charge that next turn after shooting it to pieces. The Hauler is going to come up to here. Again, we're not going to put our Hauler through. We've already got enough things to force our opponent to interact with us. We've got the spawn here. We've got these Poxwalkers here. Sometimes maybe the spawn are more valuable. Like, you really need to get Contagion deep. So what you can actually do is reverse these rolls here, so the spawn can be retained. The Hauler can be the one that sort of comes out to here. Because again, I think it might be more tempting to them as well to the Hauler over spawn. Ooh, I want to kill that. And again, if that means you can get something good, and then these spawn and then 3 for a later turn to make an 8-inch move out here, advance, get Contagion really deep, because maybe around these guys can go through walls. So again, always think about your positions with these, but let's just go with the default. So the spawn are the ones baiting the good trades for us. And again, this is, it doesn't seem super aggressive so far, but it's setting up the aggression massively. These guys here are just going a nice little cheeky just into the corner there, just to keep nice and safe in case of any aggression coming in. This Hauler, again, you have choices. You can either come forward like this, or you can then just pull him down here with an advance to come and join his friend behind this wall, because those 2 together are going to be quite nice. Again, they can come out through here. And again, remember, if they make that play with a Vindicator to come and shoot this, or any form of scary vehicle that wants to come out and shoot these spawn, because infantry, melee don't really want to go near him because of the splash mortal wounds, all that kind of stuff. You could technically even put your Blight Lords spread out and have like a single guy here. So if they come to charge them, they're at risk of getting heroic intervention. There's all these little things. And again, these are all going to be dependent on the matchup that you're against and the opponent that you're against. And then these Haulers are ready for the next turn as well. And then this Bloat Drone down here, I'm just going to, again, if there's nothing to shoot, I'm just going to move and advance him. I just want to keep the forward momentum. If you are not going to shoot and you are not going to action, just roll in advance. Because if you get a 6, it might open up something for you. Just always, if you're going to sit there and you have no intention of shooting and you have no intention of doing an action and you're not holding an objective and you can literally roll a dice and advance. If you get a 1, just do what you're going to do. Stay there. If you get a 6, get somewhat aggressive. Always roll your advances. And these two drones here are actually just going to, again, they're going to keep that threat, because I want to really discourage them coming down to shoot these Chaos Spawn. Because then what's going to happen is your opponent's going to move up, they're going to take their staging positions, maybe a little trade happens down here to kill some Poxwalkers so you don't hold the objective. Again, that's totally fine as long as the spawn live. Very unlikely they're going to stick their head through here to shoot something. Again, just be aware of things that can move, shoot, move, because obviously they'll come through, shoot, and run away. But like, let's just say we lose the Poxwalkers here, that's totally fine. Then that's when it's the go turn right now, because I've set up everything in nice positions, and now I'm going to get aggressive. And now when I get aggressive onto my opponent, the important thing here is to understand what we're attacking. What we really want to be attacking here is not only our opponent's units, but we mainly want to kill them off their safe objective. We want to keep them on this. The idea of it is, as well as be aggressive and kill units, is to keep them to one objective. Especially with Challenger cards gone now, that's going to make a lot more impact on the scoreboard than before. So on this potential go turn, I'm going to look at getting these spawn out into here, spreading contagion as much as possible down here. I might have these haulers drive through the wall. Again, this is spreading contagion into this building here. These Terminators, if they're against the wall, on an advanced, bear in mind they can reroll it with the enhancement in this list, can potentially move up to 12. I could potentially get guys into here which could then shoot into here, which is kind of crazy. You can get your full row of special weapons into here, which can then blast anything behind this wall. It's kind of crazy. And bear in mind, they're also spreading contagion. So these guys are going to come out. Now, I want these guys to be on an objective as well. So even if, let's say, if we got the 12, you can go something like that. Put more guys on the objective. But if not, you just come onto the objective. Even if they don't have something to shoot, I'm going to put them onto the objective. Because then what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to follow it up or something like that. Put the hauler onto the objective, and those guys can go a bit more aggressive up this way or down this way. We always want to make sure there's something stood on an objective. These drones start pushing out like this, just around the corners. The spawn here might want to stay. You might want to go, okay, these guys are actually going to stay here. Maybe, you know, you're obviously going to pick the Death Shroud up at the end of your opponent's turn 1. The end of your opponent's turn 2, sorry, if you're going second. Obviously, if you're going first, you pick them up at the end of their turn 1. So you can do a turn 2 deep strike. And then, basically, what you're looking to do is you're looking to have this turn where you're going to bring in both of these squads of Terminators to be aggressive. And the idea is kill your opponent off here and keep them there. So you just want to put down a bajillion bodies. So again, maybe we have another squad drop here and they come into a charge in here from the contagion that's spreading here. Because what we're doing, we're using the aggression and this overwhelming all in at once to contain the fight to here. If we can contain the fight to this objective down here, we might not be looking to hold this. We're not looking to hold it even. We're just trying to keep our opponents from holding it. So as long as we keep trading off it and on it and off it and on it, and what it allows our haulers, the launchers to do at the back, these guys can then take angles down here. Because again, all the focus right now is going to be 100% on these Death Shroud that are in your opponent's lines. They're 100% going to be having to fully focus on that. Maybe the Chaos Spawn have tagged something there in there, spreading contagion, and you've pushed everything out. These Blight Lords are probably going to be the last concern, which means you're probably going to hold this primary for a turn, because ain't nobody walking onto this and getting overwatched by you. And again, sometimes that's why you might want to sit behind this wall, because again, your opponent's then got to sort of get through to shoot you, whereas here you're doing good. So at this point, you have presented your opponent so many problems at once that it can be really hard for opponents to deal with. Now, obviously, this is quite a big all, and this is be a turn 2 all, and maybe it's not the right time. Maybe your opponent had some screening units that you kind of got to deal with and take care of. But again, that's where your spawn come in. Sometimes it's even worth it to like put a drone out to shoot the screen away. Even again, the Blight Lords are really good dealing with screens because of the fact that they can just shoot them, or you can just charge them as a springboard. But the idea is doing this big sort of like all-in go turn where now your opponent's got all this stuff in the face, and yeah, maybe they kill a Death Shroud squad Lord, but then again, the Lord could potentially get back up, and if this Lord's here and he gets back up and then they charge him, you could then heroic him with the Blight Lord Terminators and things like this. So there's lots of plays that can sort of like come off each other here to sort of make something happen. But the rough idea is that go turn, you can see I've not only sent all the damaging units out who've gone and killed stuff, so these are obviously hopefully connected with some decent units. And again, maybe we don't need to, maybe my opponent only had some trash on here, in which case use the Blight Lords to shoot down and kill the trash off. Have the Death Shroud be more aggressive, you know, the spawn came down here, maybe there was some Sanguinary Guard in here or something. These guys then 6-inch deep strike here and come and kill the scary units, now they're back here in their opponent's lines. It's all about basically trying to keep the fight down here, because another thing that happens is when there's so much pressure on your opponent, action secondaries become really hard to do, because you don't want units doing actions when there's this much pressure on you. So it decentivizes your opponents doing actions as well, because they've got to deal with a threat in front of them, which further puts them behind on the scoreboard. And then if you can just be a happy chappy and sort of hold an objective like this, now obviously you've got to be aware of reinforcements. So if your opponent's deep strike, you still need to make sure you're screening things out. So maybe, like, you know, this hauler comes down here instead, like that. So just be aware, you still got to screen your stuff out. Don't let your opponent get into your home objective for free. As you can see, they're nice and spread out in a dog bone formation. But the idea being that this massive all-in at once makes the most out of Death Guard's natural toughness as well, because it takes a lot more shots. They're not massive amounts, but it takes more effort to kill a unit than in other armies, because of, again, our wound rolls are not as easy to make. Like I term it as a T7, so things that would normally be wounded on 4s or wounded on 5s, 5s and 3s to 4s, you know, things like that. You're not really going to get wounded on 2s by many things in the game. So having these sort of all-in turns, and again, if you were to back this up in a different attachment, this is Death Lord's Chosen, bear in mind, but you could easily rock this with -1 damage, Champions of Contagion. So you make this squad down here T9. This is now going to take even more attention away from your opponent that has to be dealt with. So it's this idea of this, the Death Guard's overwhelming turn is how we do aggressive. We're not aggressive in the sense that we just basically go unga bunga turn 1 and send it. But because our units, especially this list, has everything has an invulnerable, like a pile of spawn and the Poxwalkers, all our termites are 4 invulnerable, so you don't die easy. You've got high toughness stats as well, and a good amount of wounds in every single model. Now, obviously, this was even more impressive when I had a third squad of these things, due to points, because then obviously I could have another third squad. So imagine this. It's hard to actually imagine, like, how, you know, how unfair this was to your opponent with 3 of these guys coming in, but you can see the amount of pressure it could put onto your opponent. So I just wanted to make this quick little video to sort of show you, like, that was how I was playing my Death Lord's Chosen list when I played it. It was all about this sort of like stage here, and again, these things can be done with other. Like, again, let's get rid of this big Blight Lord brick. So the Blight Lord brick's not here. So we just drove out a Blight Hauler onto there to hold it, because we've got aggression coming in from our 3 Terminator squads. Maybe you're playing with a Rhino with Plague Marines in it. If you don't, if the Rhinos are in the spot of the Death Blight Lords, maybe I don't need to disembark and shoot. But instead, I'm just going to drive the Rhino out aggressively and stay in that Rhino, because then next turn, again, because my opponent's dealing with all this nonsense up here, this Rhino could then drive through and get even more aggressive. And again, the idea keeping the fight back here, keeping the opponent on the defensive, on the back foot, not being able to do actions. And this is also how you beat, like, armies that want to just keep out trading you. You don't let them trade. You just go, blah, here's the all-in. And then we'll go from there. Like, we'll basically, I'm going to kill a bunch of your MSU units, because if I just sit the 2 spawn on this wall all game and try and out-trade them, they're going to keep going 5 Marines, 5 Marines, 5 Marines. Sometimes you need a big play like this that just all-ins. And the truth can be said for, like, things like Mortarion. So, like, Mortarion, a lot of people might just naturally deploy him here because they don't want him to get shot. Actually look at your opponent's list, figure out how easy it is for them to kill Mortarion, and then wait to deploy him. I've had tons of games where an opponent's got like 2 Vindicators, they've gone 1 here, 1 here, and then I'm like, cool, here's like here's Mortarion here. So he's not going to be able to be shot from there unless you bring it all the way out, in which case I'll just deploy 2 Blight Halls like here to kill it if you try it, and the other one's not going to be able to get range of him and line of sight. And then Mortarion can then get super aggressive and be an absolute nightmare, and just focus on keeping my opponent off this objective. Because, again, the easiest way to win games in Warhammer before you get to that really high-level table is just me hold this. So me holding my natural, you no holding yours. The middle, meh, who cares? Sometimes you hold it, sometimes you don't. Like, you normally hold it when you're starting to win the game, or you had this big aggression turn, and you put the thing they want to shoot the least. So again, in that scenario, even if that's an empty Rhino, let's say that the Plague Marines have got out and gone doing something. So say we've got some Plague Marines and they're off going and shooting someone down here and charging things on this point. Drive your Rhinos to this point, because in the midst of all of this happening, Death Shroud have come in, the Demon Engines are shooting them, the Plague Marines are out onto their point killing them, the Chaos Spawn is spreading contagion and tagging things. The last thing they're going to think about is shooting the Rhino. And if they do shoot the Rhino, that's fine, because it's still assets that aren't going into all the actual danger units, which can then next turn proceed to cause more carnage and danger in your opponent's lines. So I just wanted this quick example. It's not quick enough, it's been 21 minutes, I apologise. But again, just an example of like an aggressive push from a list that I was playing so recently. Now obviously have to make some cuts and points due to the points changes, but you get the rough idea of how the list played. It staged that turn 1, it waited, and then it had this overwhelming turn of aggression where by the end of the game I might not have much left. But if I have made all my efforts, because then the Blight Lords in that situation would then start rotating down here to keep my opponent off this primary even more. The Bloat Drones just focus on shooting off anything that tries to stand in the middle. I'll maybe leave a single Blight Hole there so I can score points if I score points. And by the end of it, maybe all the Blight Lords are dead. Maybe all the Death Shroud are dead. Maybe all the Spawn are dead, and I've not got much. But if my opponent has not held this for a single turn, and not held this for a single turn, their primary maximum is going to be 20. 4 times from home. God forbid I have to take that off you. And as long as I've held these two, I'm going to be 40. And it's very hard to win on a 20 primary point deficit. So yeah, just a little example of what I thrown at the end there of how I was playing my aggressive Deathguard's chosen list. And just remember, aggression for Deathguard is not hyper aggression. It's not turn 1 Unga Bunga, run it in there. It's set it up, get ready, go turn. And then on that go turn from there, that's when you don't let the pedal off. The pressure has to keep on. Keep on applying pressure, keep on killing your opponent off your objective. Like, again, I don't care if you're here right now, say the fight's been going a little bit, you're here, and your opponent's got, you know, some Sanguinary Guard in this ruin over here, but they've got some guys on here. Your primary focus should be getting them off this objective more than going to kill the Sanguinary Guard. Now, obviously, if it's something super juicy and it'll end the game right there, feel free to go and get it, but always keep in mind, just keep an eye on that scoreboard, always focus on removing them from this first. So yeah, back to the presentation and to wrap this one up. Alright, welcome back. So to recap this, Deathguard can 100% play an aggressive pressure style build. It's just not the super hyper aggressive turn 1 full send Unga Bunga. You're looking at always trying to stage first and then full send it into your opponent. And just remember, if you're going to commit to it, commit to it. Bring it full down, because that we're not World Eaters where our units fall over the second something looks at them. So we don't need to pace out our units and pace out our aggression. It is an overwhelming tide of rot. Go for the go turn. And again, you'll learn, the more you play, you'll learn which armies you can do this against. Because don't get me wrong, you can't play this playstyle versus every single army. Some armies out there just deal such insane damage that if you try to overwhelm them, they can reach that DPS check and kill you. Rare, but it is out there. But again, you'll only really get to understand that when you start fighting that army, and then you'll know for future that in those games you have to play a bit more of a less, you know, a bit more traditional sort of trading a bit here or there playstyle. But against a lot of armies that haven't got the guns to deal with so much like T7, 4-up invulnerable, or whatever it is, the kind of flavour of aggression you've brought, you really can understand that you can just run them over. Again, Mortarion versus an army that's not got much anti-tank, he can be super aggressive. Like, feel free, go for it. But always remember, when you have that go turn, go for the throat. Scoring comes later. If you have an aggressive turn and suddenly you drew 2 cards that say, hey, have 5 units do actions, fuck that. Throw that shit away. Like, get a CP for at the end of your turn, or spend a CP if you got loads back stored up to get rid of it and get a better one. Like, don't get caught up on trying to get those. If you get a card for 2 VP that's going to cost you 2 units to do actions and you've not got them spare at the moment, chuck it away, recycle it, or just take a CP off it. The pressure and denying your opponents and keeping their opponents off score. Again, the option for you is score 2 VP or drop my opponent 8 VP. I know what I'm picking every time. It's not hard. So just understand this. Go for the throw, get your score later. And again, you're going to fail sometimes. Pressure doesn't always work. Sometimes, you know, you go for the charges, you don't make them. Sometimes your opponent rolls hot. Sometimes you roll crap on your invulns. Sometimes the opposite happens. Sometimes you just did a bad go turn, you did it too soon, you know, or maybe you went too early, you didn't send enough stuff out, maybe you half-assed it. You're going to fail sometimes, and failing is totally okay. We learn more from our failures, so if you do fail, just go fail again. It's fine, like, it's a game at the end of the day. And eventually those fails will start to become successes. But yeah, just remember these things, and remember Deathguard can 100% play aggressive. It's all about that go turn and that absolute pressure. So everyone, for now, go out there. Remember, get a win for Kirby. He really likes when people play pressure. Look at that face. That is intimidation. That is staring across you at the table. He's going to put pressure on you. He's going to be an aggressive player. I can tell. So thank you for watching. I need to upgrade the screen for Death Shroud, so I apologise if you're a new Death Shroud and your name's not on here. I've had very little time to make videos at the moment. I will update it for the next video, of which that next video is actually going to be a nice quick video with one list for every single detachment for players who want to get a feel for the detachment So it's not necessarily the most competitive list possible for a detachment, but it's one that emphasizes everything that makes that detachment good. And they're all going to be in a nice video with a quick explanation of how to play them and go over them. So you can look for that coming soon, as well as our regular stream content. Now, do remember, I'm trying to get back more into making teaching videos. I feel like we've gone a bit off topic with that recently. So keep your eyes up on the channel. Hopefully get a lot more instructional videos out for you soon. Again, sorry this has been a long one. It's disgusting resilient for you. We do long form content. But I hope you managed to learn something. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I will catch you all on the next episode. Please leave a like and subscribe. Really helps. Take care. Bye-bye for now.